Welcome. This is the podcast series dedicated to living a revenue culture. Revenue is what's required for an organization to survive in the short term and thrive in the long term. Most people want to maximize that revenue, and they don't realize that the only way they can do that is to first optimize a people-first culture. So we do 2 of these a month. And these are dedicated to those of you who want to learn how to do both of those things, maximize profit because you first optimize the people first culture. And today we have Brittney Helt with us. And I've had the good fortune to work with her for the last, I guess, a little over 3 years now. And she's the vice president at TTI Success Insights, and she's in charge of partner programming. Brittney's going to be one of the unique people we've had because she has a foot in those 2 camps that we talked about, the maximize profit and the people first culture, because culture and people is what TTI's business is all about. So she not only gets to help move that information and knowledge out to the market, but she gets to help TTI be really good at what they walk their talk with. So Brittney, welcome. Glad to have you with us today.
Thanks, Rick, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, every time we get together, it's exciting. So I don't think today will be any different. You have a very interesting background, and you do some really cool stuff today. Would you just share, how you got where you are and how all that played into your role here at TTI?
Absolutely. Yes. I'm a little bit of a unicorn, I guess we could say, when it comes to how I ended up at TTI Success Insights. I've actually had some sort of involvement or kind of foot in the door in one way, shape, or form with TTI Success Insights my entire professional career. So I graduated college and was going to be the next Katie Couric or Jane Pauley. And then reality kind of hit, and I realized that's not really what I wanted to do. And so I did a little bit of searching, and partially, the world and partially just a need for a paycheck landed me in a conversation with a woman who ran her own consultancy. And she asked, as part of the onboarding or hiring process, that I complete an assessment. Little did I know that assessment would change my life forever and be a really big part of my life. I got the job, so that's the good news. And I ended up working with this consultancy for about 10 years. And our focus was really helping people in the people business, so learning professionals, talent development, talent management folks, understand project management. So it's an interesting, juxtaposition, not necessarily what you think really connects. But I got to play in the consultant side and really understand what it meant to run a small business, to work with clients, to really see transformation happen inside of those folks. So I did that for about 10 years. Life happened, and as we were making a cross-country move, I had the fortune of getting to work with other small business owners that are part of the TTI network in different aspects: marketing, sales, project management, all kinds of different areas. Until one day, TTI said, "We'd really like you to work on this side of things." And so since 2018, I've been part of the internal team at TTI Success Insights. And for the last year or so, I've had the pleasure of working with the partner services group, which means I get a front row seat in seeing how these assessments and the different services that TTI provides are helping to quite literally change lives and have a huge impact on people all over the world.
Fascinating. And two things are running through my mind. One is, as you're describing this, I'm just seeing all kinds of in it. And you started right out by your story, where the assessment in your life made a difference. And today, when you work with partners, I'm going to ask you to talk about what that looks like and how that works in a second. But you're helping the partners use assessments to transfer value to individuals and organizations. So I'd love to have you share how that works, because TTI has been doing this for 38 plus years at this point.
39 next month. So we're getting close.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what partners mean here, because it's a little different than some people might think about, and it's pivotal to the transfer of value.
Absolutely. So we look at partners as professionals, experts. They might call themselves a facilitator or a coach or a consultant, but we are really trying to find the folks who are trying to make a difference in the world. What we call partner with them to provide them with the tools, the knowledge, the resources that are attached to our assessments and sciences. And then we work with them, and they are the folks who go out and deliver those, maybe it's a facilitation, maybe it's a training course, maybe it's a coaching program to different customers and clients. So there's a real partnership there in helping to ensure that they have all the tools and the resources that they need so that they can be successful in helping others understand themselves, understand one another better. And at the end of the day, as you said, it's transferring that value, and that comes in lots of different shapes and sizes, right? That could be having an aha moment like I did, where I went, oh, maybe that's not the right role or job for me. Maybe it's in understanding that it really is important to invest in someone's team or someone's organization on the people side, because we believe that's the most important aspect of any organization. And so how can we help them continue to grow? So it really is a unique situation in that we get to not necessarily work with the people who are experiencing that every single day, like that in person that's having that aha moment. Sometimes we do, but it's more so we're really focused on connecting with experts in the talent development field who specialize in those areas and making sure that they have the tools and the resources that they need to be able to do the really important work of sparking transformation in people's lives.
It's interesting as I listen to that. Often when I talk to, and I get to talk to hundreds and some years thousands of CEOs, and when they talk about building their organization, and they often use the word culture, and they think of culture as, well, do we have a ping pong table or a foosball machine, or do we do beer and brats on Friday? And that's not what you're talking about, is it?
No, I think that plays a role, or it can play a role. But when we're talking about transformation, we're trying to make sure that people are really in the right seat, doing the right thing, doing the thing that's going to fill them up. So in our world, we talk about those things as what we call sciences, or different areas that kind of help describe how a person prefers to communicate, prefers to do things, why they would do something. Where's their, what I like to call, where's their superpower? How can we identify what is it that they're just incredible at, and make sure that they're in a role and in an organization that can support that superpower, because they're going to be happier. They're going to be more efficient. They're going to be more effective. That's going to help them stay engaged. And everything that we know from the 30, almost 9 years of research and data and stories and that we've collected say that when we can get those folks in a position that sets them up to meet those different needs, the organization, the company wins. So we're trying to create a win-win for both that company or that organization, as well as that individual, person who's hopefully experiencing all those check marks in all of those things. So when we look at culture, maybe for someone that is really important, that they have fun, right? Ping pong tables and, a beer tap. Sometimes that equates to fun, and that might be really important to specific individuals. So that could be part of a culture. But to others, it's more about, why am I getting up every morning and coming to this job? So for me personally at TTI, it's really all about, it's a calling. It's not just a job. It's not just a career. I'm getting up in the morning, understanding that I get to play a very small part in potentially changing someone's life, giving them a moment of, aha moments, right? That really understanding themselves in a way that they might not have ever been able to understand themselves. And so helping organizations create that inside of their, teams and departments and just across the board, that creates the type of culture that we're trying to build and to help, transform.
Yeah, as I'm listening, and one of the terms you've used a couple of times already is either research or science. And when I've watched people over the span of my career, and they have a hiring checklist, or we're trying to promote somebody in the software department, we create a 5 checklist way to think about that. And it's just whimsical almost. Or we take the best salesperson and define what they are, and that must be what it takes to be a sales manager. But for TTI, when you use the terms like science and research, tell us how that changes kind of the arbitrary checklist to a science kind of checklist.
Absolutely. So as you said, a lot of times when you say you identify a role and you know that it's time to go hire someone, or you're looking at the possibility of promoting someone into a new role, you have your checklist of skills, right? Oftentimes it's hard skills. Can this person, utilize the software that we need? Do they have the basic understanding of the day-to-day responsibilities? Can they, if it's a supervisory type of role, can they manage people effectively? And I might be able to check those boxes, but I can guarantee you, Rick, you do not want me in an accounting or controller, type of position or role. And that's kind of where the magic, if you will, the science, the research comes into play. So we're really looking or trying to look at the role as holistically as we possibly can. So what would create superior performance in this position? And we try to look at that role or that opportunity in that way as we craft the ideal candidate. And that includes things like, how would this person behave? Do you need somebody that makes decisions quickly and, kind of just flies off by the seat of their pants? It's probably not going to make a super great, person in the accounting side of things, if we're going to use that example. Or do you need someone that, takes their time, really looks at all the details, digs in? Why are they doing what they're doing, right? What gets them out of bed in the morning? Are they really, focused on call it the process and the procedures, or are they going to get bored and make something up new every single day and change the way that they do it every day? So we really try to look at that holistic perspective and really create what's going to work best for this role. We also know that there are certain things like that, like the how and the why, that are they're just harder to change in a human, in a person. You've kind of grown up that way. But we can teach somebody the skills that they need potentially. So, we've done a lot of research, and we make sure that, when we look at a role and try to say what's going to work best for this role, that we're taking all of these different pieces into it, because that hopefully will help us identify, what's going to make a good candidate. It's not just checking all the boxes for the skills. We want somebody that's going to love what they do. They're going to show up every day excited to dig into their tasks, or to help that person on the other end of the phone, and really own it, and live it.
Yeah, interesting. Along that line, I know TTI's thinking about a term called the talent journey. And, as I'm listening to you, what I'm hearing is that it isn't enough just to use an assessment to get somebody hired. That is that assessment have long-term value? And if it has long-term value, does it help the career? Does it help the company? And is it strategic or is it tactical?
Yes, to all of that. So yes, we believe that these sciences and these assessments should absolutely follow someone throughout their entire career lifespan, or talent journey, or whatever you want to call it. Because sure, we just talked about the application for what that looks like when we're trying to hire someone or fill a new role. But if we're checking in with that person throughout their entire career in different really important aspects, like leadership development, or, hey, I want to grow. I want to, develop myself as an employee. Not only can we utilize that information to help fulfill that desire for that individual, but what we know is that creates longevity for that person inside of their career path, as well as inside of that organization. So we know that it's really expensive to lose folks to another organization, or to bring in a new employee. And so if we're able to help guide and grow that individual inside the organization, that person's going to feel fulfilled. They're going to feel valued. It goes back to that first list, right? They're going to feel engaged. They're going to want to get up and participate in the morning. And you're also creating value for the organization and for the teams and the departments inside that organization, because they're able to hold on to some of that history, right? That tribal knowledge of that person who's been in that organization. And let's be honest, it saves them some dollars and cents, because they're not having to go out and do all of the steps that are necessary to find someone new, and to onboard someone, and to get somebody else up to speed.
Yeah, as you were talking, I'm thinking about when we talk about the revenue culture, and we talk about people first, optimizing that before you dream you're going to maximize profits, because it's that person who's innovative, or is excellent with customers, or who is operationally excellent and can organize and work cross-siloed and all those kinds of things. And the other thing that was striking me, I'd like you to comment on, is I read today that the young people coming into business may have 7 careers in their lifetime. I mean, that's not just 7 jobs. If I read the research right, it's 7. I'm going to start out as an accountant, then I'm going to be a salesperson, then I'm going to finance, and am I reading all that right? And then how do the assessments and how does the work TTI, how do you impact those things? Sounds like a lot of transformation.
Yes, it's kind of mind-boggling, but we do know that these newer generations that are entering the workforce are they're looking, I believe, they're looking to be fulfilled. And so they're a little more open to trying new things in order to, feel fulfilled. I hope he won't mind that I talk about this, but my husband is a really great example of someone who has had several different careers. And to be quite honest, it's all about trying to find that thing that, really, fills his cup and fulfills his need and desire to make sure that he's making a difference in the world. And for him, that's taken him to several different, I would say, careers in his time in the professional world. And the cool thing about what TTI's assessments can do is we can start identifying what is it that gets you, excited? What are the things that will help fulfill those needs and those desires for folks? And it just helps getting people thinking. A lot of times, maybe somebody just said, I just need a job. I just need a paycheck, right? And so to utilize some tools that help us to be able to say, well, we can give you, or we can help you find that job and it gives you that paycheck, but also we can help identify some things that you can look for that will help fulfill you. To me, that's where the magic happens. And as you said, that's creating that transformation. And if we can help an organization by saying, hey, we have this incredible person who's in this role, they're looking for something a little more. They're looking for something different. And being able to identify that early on and say, hey, we have a career path for you. We have different options for you. To me, that's really creating some value inside of an organization, both for the organization as well as for that young person. If you get somebody in and you can hold on to them for several years, I'm a little bit weird because I've been in this world for a really long time, which is not normal for people, in my age bracket. But I owe a lot of that to the fact that I feel like there's a deeper, part of me that is fulfilled by doing this work inside of this arena and this network. And so if we can help those younger generation of folks who are coming up through the workforce, I think we can help them feel more comfortable, more excited, more energized, more engaged, and more fulfilled. And we're going to help the companies that are hiring these folks because they can say, oh, well, we can help you, achieve that next goal or get to that next level because of the information they have and they know. So it really is, kind of marrying those two sides, which you don't often think really go together, but it's that people side and that value side.
It's interesting as I'm listening. I'm a big believer in the power of purpose. And when we talk about transparency, to me, part of fulfillment is being able to be transparent while I'm living my purpose so that I don't have to cover it up or hide it or sneak around to do it, that I can get into a job position where, yes, I make a living, but my purpose is allowing me to be fulfilled because I'm working on it. It sounds like, as you're describing this, the tools, the assessments help people identify where they can have a job and fulfill their purpose, And from the organization standpoint, they have some, I hope they have some idea of where they're going and where individual purposes could be the match to creativity or innovation or excellence or quality or human interaction. Am I on the right page?
I think so. Yeah. The goal is alignment, right? Of an individual's goals, aspirations, and that of an organization. So yeah, there might be organizations that are still trying to figure it out, and that's part of the discovery process. What if you discovered that with your team, your folks? Could you create something that works together to build something that's going to be long term, and that's at the end of the day gonna work well for both, groups identified, that individual as well as the organization.
And it sounds like, we read about collaboration. It sounds like the assessments make collaboration easier. Is that a true statement?
So I think we should be a little careful about the way that we look at collaboration. I think a lot of folks, when they hear the word collaboration, they think, oh, I'm going to work on a team. And that doesn't necessarily equate to what I think you're referring to in terms of collaboration, which is really just understanding each other. And that's how simplistic these tools can be. And I think that's why they work so well. I get to understand myself better so that I understand how I'm going to show up for my role, for my position. Not even just in the role, but at home, to my husband, to my family, right? Yep. And if the organization or my family or my team or whoever that is also has that information, yeah, they better understand how they can interact with me in a way that's going to work. So it goes back to our prior conversation about, it does create some transparency among the two roles, or many roles in this case. And in a sense, it is very collaborative without, that maybe traditional definition of, collaboration in a team when you think about that. But it's more of, saying, okay, here's me, here's you. Where are we going to work well together? Where are we going to struggle? Just having that awareness and understanding before, it all blows up, or before a problem occurs, is powerful.
Yeah, I know in my career, after I'd been in consulting about 10 years, I started to understand some of that you're talking about, me understanding me and other people. Mm-hmm. And I realized, because we dealt with huge corporations, that I'd be in a room and person A would be just yelling at person B, and B would be reciprocating. And I'd be listening to them, and I would hear each one saying the exact same thing, but saying it from their own colored glasses or their own business discipline, accounting versus marketing or whatever. And that I ended up, part of my career was I could interpret those two and end up with a collaborative conversation, right, about a subject. And once I realized that was really a science, not an accident or something like that, it changed my career completely.
Yeah, and what an incredible thing that you had the ability to see that and to understand that. Not everyone does. And I think that's part of what makes me so excited and so fulfilled being able to be a part of this, is it almost creates a shortcut. Like, think about it as, you take out those first few awkward months of dating because you get to know the person, really quickly. From a business standpoint, if you're willing to put in a little bit of work on the upfront, hopefully it saves some of those tough conversations or those, only being able to see it from your own lens situations that can really cost individuals and their relationships, but can also, think of the dollars and cents that costs an organization in wasted time, productivity, frustration, unengaged, team members. If you could kind of cut some of that out, feels like it would create a lot more value inside of the organization than having to go through it the other way.
It's interesting. Organizations tend to want to do things in systemic, predictable, controllable kinds of ways. And when it comes to people, most organizations don't do anything predictable. And if it was software, we'd want to make sure we all understood the same data structure, and we were all on the same network, and we could all access the same cloud storage, and we would just design things that way. But in the people part, it sounds like it's all random or very tactically unique, and trying to put the pieces together is just in the short terms like crazy, let alone for the next 20 or 30 years. Now, as you think about that, you think about TTI's partners and its assessment tools. How do you see TTI impacting that lack of a strategic problem, or it is a strategic problem, but lack of a solution for that strategic problem? What's the role going to be going forward?
So I think it's all starts with awareness. So the goal for our organization and for our partners is to start at the beginning, and that's just creating that awareness about the fact that it doesn't have to be so difficult. There can be some systemization and some strategy applied in organizations that can help negate some of the frustration and some of the, I don't know, they're people, they're too complicated, or they're too difficult. And so I'm hopeful that as we continue to grow and move forward together and understand these types of situations and really hear from folks, who are dealing with this, really talking to the folks in the talent development space, the HR managers, the CHROs, the strategy officers, the folks that are really dealing with this every day, understanding that they're not alone and utilizing the tools in lots of different entry points, instances inside of their organizations and for all of their folks inside of their careers. So really helping to paint a picture, if you will, of all of the different areas that potentially could be easier, could be more efficient, could be less chaotic, because there's a plan in place up front. And that, as you and I have talked about, people are complex. It's not going to be, the same plan for every single organization. It's not going to be the same exact plan for every single team or for every single person. But creating that awareness and saying, here's the framework. Let's make it work for your organization. Let's make it work for your team, and helping to identify those different areas where they don't have to be on an island alone, and we can really start having valuable conversations that take out some of that chaos, that take out some of that unknown, to be able to help guide them in a way that's going to be beneficial for their people, them, and the organization.
It's interesting as you're talking about the framework. What I'm hearing is the science of the assessments help to make that framework more predictable and easier to understand, so that instead of every event being uniquely interpreted, you're creating a standard way, and it may not address all of the complexity, but it sure addresses some of the major, most common parts of it, so that both the individual and the organization can make decisions that they're both getting fulfilled by. Am I on the right path?
Absolutely. And I think it's also just knowing that there's no right or wrong answer. But there is a path, and there is there are folks out there, and there are organizations out there who've been there, done that. Let's learn from that. Let's together create something that's going to build a legacy and an impact long term, that ensures that that organization can continue to grow, continue to move, continue to, go in the right direction, as opposed to, doing that spiral and coming back to that place.
That spiral, that's the one that goes down the John,
I
right?
think so. Something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting as you were saying that. A couple things jumped out at me. One is, no right or wrong answer, and then the other was the long term of it. And it's interesting as I look at organizations, sometimes the person who for a year or two didn't seem to contribute a lot, all of a sudden the world has changed and they're the hero. And, I just wonder how often that could happen if we created an environment that allowed it and encouraged it.
Right. And I think that all goes back to that initial conversation of understanding who you have inside of your organization at a deeper level, not just, oh, Sally can check all the boxes and, create beautiful spreadsheets. It's really understanding what experiences, what passions these folks have, because as the world changes, the organization is going to need different people, different superpowers, different, operating systems, and different operational goals, or, they'll die. The organization will. It's, we've seen it happen time after time after time. So those organizations who are able to innovate and move with the industry or the world or the market are the ones that I believe really tap into their people. Look around and go, oh, you've got an idea? Great. Let's talk about it. Because those are the people that also understand the organization. So you're building a legacy.
It's interesting, your example of the superpower. I wonder how often, and I'm afraid I know the answer, is how often the superpower gets unnoticed and the problem is out there that the people could solve if they were tapped to solve it. And so the organization misses out on great opportunities because they just don't recognize the superpower to match to the business need. So, okay,
and I think,
I just want to say, Brittney, this has been great. We're starting to run out of our time, but I do have two things I want to ask you. One is, what advice do you have for young people coming in, who, wanted to be a news anchor like you did, and, they're just coming out of school and they're ready to start sending out resumes. And then the same question, except for senior executives who have the opportunity to hire these young people. And how do we help them be as fulfilled as each of them can be?
So it's interesting. I have similar advice for both ends of the spectrum. And I think the major thing that helped me, and that I think the majority of folks especially in job hunting. I don't know. There's something that just flips in our brain and we go, ah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. But I think it's really about understanding from both perspectives, what is it that you really want? What is it that you really need? And looking for that in the other. So if it's somebody who's just coming out of school, just coming into their professional career, don't settle just for that first offer that's given to you that checks boxes. Really ask questions. When you have the ability to meet with folks inside the organization and go through an interview, ask them what the day-to-day looks like. Ask them what they do with their teams. Ask, what's your culture like, and listen, not for the ping pong tables and the beer taps, but listen for the clues that talk about, well, we grow our people internally. We give them opportunities to grow their thinking and to grow their abilities inside of an organization. And on the flip side, when those executives are looking at, okay, how do we sustain and grow in the future? I'd say similar, ask those same types of questions to people who are in your organization and want to move up through the organization, or, identifying folks who are new and really asking them, where do you see yourself in 3 years? What's most important to you? And if those two things align, that's where that magic happens, right? And don't settle for less. Don't do it. Or if you have to do it short term, because it's out there. I'm a walking, breathing example that it actually does work.
Wow. Terrific. And you just prompted one last question. If I'm that young person coming out into the market, can I find a way to take a really good assessment? And can that be part of my search? I mean, is that a real thing?
It is. And this is one of the cool things that I feel very passionately about. So come on to ttisi.com, check it out, connect with us, have a conversation with somebody from my team who, I'm biased, but I think they're really great. But once you have that information about yourself, you can actually use it to craft your resume and to craft your job search. So based on what happens or comes out of that assessment and the report and the information that you get, I say utilize it. Utilize it on your LinkedIn profile, utilize it in your resume, and utilize it when you're doing searches, keyword searches for roles that you like when you're looking for organizations that really meet some of those needs and those wants that you might have.
Well, thank you for that. That I've got a daughter that I'm thinking about sending her to go do that.
We would love to have that conversation.
Well, Brittney, thank you for being here today. Any last words you want to leave us with?
I think just don't settle. Don't settle. Get to know yourself, get to know what really matters to you, and then go find it. It's out there.
Terrific. Thank you so much for being with us today. And for the rest of you, thank you for joining us. And we hope you'll be back with us in 2 weeks when we do the next version of Living a Revenue Culture. Have a great week.